There is an island in the Pacific whose soil once helped fertilize farmland across the world. Today, it can barely grow a single vegetable. A cauliflower there costs $12. A watermelon costs $40. Over 90% of its people are overweight or obese. Nauru did not become the most obese nation on Earth by accident. This story begins not with food, but with what was taken from the ground beneath it. Long before the extraction of its soil began, Nauru was a self-sustaining island where daily life centered on the sea and the earth. The islanders caught reef fish along the shore and cultivated taro in the rich soil of the plateau. Coconuts, pandanus, and breadfruit grew in abundance, providing natural sources of hydration and nutrients. In the interior, the quiet waters of the Boada Lagoon served as a natural sanctuary where families raised milkfish using traditional techniques. Early visitors described the Nauruans as some of the healthiest and strongest people in the Pacific, possessing great agility and physical endurance. Their ability to feed themselves was not a dream, but the everyday baseline of survival. This functional food system sustained the population for generations, establishing a stable way of life that would soon be completely dismantled. In 1899, a quiet shift occurred thousands of miles away in a Sydney office. Albert Ellis, a manager for the Pacific Islands Company, analyzed a heavy, unusual rock being used as a doorstop. Tests revealed it was high-grade phosphate ore from Nauru. Within months, this accidental discovery turned the remote island from a self-sufficient ecosystem into a targeted extraction zone. The German administration, which then controlled the island, granted mining rights to foreign interests. Following World War I, political control transferred to a joint trusteeship of Great Britain, Australia, and New Zealand. Operating through the British Phosphate Commissioners, these colonial powers turned the entire island into a state-sponsored machine of extraction. For nearly a century, foreign ships carried Nauru's soil away to fertilize the farmlands of the Western world. To secure this valuable mineral, mining crews stripped and exported 43 million tons of phosphate from Nauru's interior. Heavy machinery systematically peeled away the ancient forests, the fertile topsoil, and the native vegetation. What remained beneath was a scarred, white expanse of jagged limestone pillars. This industrial campaign permanently altered the island's geography. By the time the intensive mining operations began to slow, more than 90% of Nauru's land surface had been rendered completely barren. The fertile plateau that had sustained the islanders with taro, breadfruit, and wild crops for thousands of years was gone, replaced by an uninhabitable wasteland unable to support any form of food production. In the 1970s, the scale of this extraction yielded a sudden, dizzying fortune. The newly independent nation took control of its phosphate royalties, and almost overnight, Nauru became one of the wealthiest societies on Earth per capita. The government established a tax-free system, providing free healthcare and free education for every citizen, alongside direct cash payouts to households. With this influx of wealth came unprecedented convenience. Families bought imported cars, modern appliances, and processed foods shipped from thousands of miles away. In this climate of rapid material wealth, the physical labor of fishing and farming lost its practical necessity. Traditional food practices, once essential for survival, quickly came to be viewed as symbols of hardship. Why spend hours in canoes under a hot sun when canned meats, sweetened drinks, and white rice were cheap, prestigious, and readily available? This shift was driven by the universal appeal of modern ease, reshaping Nauruan households through sudden cash. What looked like an era of ultimate success was quietly reshaping the island's future. A centuries-old system of self-reliance vanished in a single generation, replaced by a complete, fragile dependency on foreign shipping lanes. By 2006, the phosphate reserves were entirely exhausted and the royalty checks stopped. The Bank of Nauru collapsed into bankruptcy, leaving the government without funds and citizens without their primary source of income. This financial ruin exposed a deeper, structural disaster. The interior plateau remained a wasteland of barren limestone pillars, meaning the islanders could not simply return to the soil to grow food. Decades of easy cash had also severed the connection to the past. Ancestral skills of traditional farming and reef fishing had thinned across generations, leaving few who knew how to harvest the land or sea. With no domestic agriculture and no national wealth, The old subsistence system could not absorb the shock. Nauru had moved from choosing imported convenience to requiring it for basic survival. Every day, Nauruan families must buy food from a market entirely dependent on what arrives at the shipping docks. Inside the island's grocery stores, the shelves are dominated by cheap, shelf-stable imports. The daily pantry consists of canned Spam, instant noodles, and sacks of white rice. In the meat cases, low-value, high-fat cuts discarded by wealthier nations fill the inventory, specifically mutton flaps, which are highly fatty lamb breasts, and greasy turkey tails. Fresh produce has become an exorbitant luxury. A single head of cauliflower costs $12, while a watermelon retails for $40, reflecting the steep logistical expense of shipping perishable cargo across the Pacific. Because local agriculture is gone, household diets are determined entirely by supply and price. Families buy these processed, energy-dense foods because they are the only options that are consistently available and affordable. Without native crops or fresh vegetables within reach of the average household, daily survival relies on this diet of cheap, imported calories, paving the way for a severe public health crisis. Today, within Nauru's population of roughly 10,000 people, this transformed food environment has produced a measurable metabolic crisis. More than 94% of adults are now classified as overweight or obese, with the average adult weighing approximately 100 kilograms. These numbers represent the clinical signatures of a population surviving within an entirely imported, synthetic food system, where nourishing options have been priced out of reach. The physical toll of this environment is most visible in the rates of chronic metabolic disease. Around 40% of Nauru's population now lives with type 2 diabetes, giving the nation the highest documented rate of the disease on Earth. For older generations, the crisis is even more concentrated, reaching a severe 45% prevalence among adults aged 55 to 64. What began as an engineered shift in trade has culminated in a devastating medical emergency, turning a historically strong people into patients and survivors of a structural, multi-generational health crisis. Years of sudden wealth reshaped how Nauruans viewed health and status, turning a larger body size into a prestigious symbol of success. Physical ease became the new aspiration, replacing active, traditional lifestyles. Today, the government attempts to counter this sedentary norm with a weekly 3-mile walk around the airport runway on Wednesdays. Yet these daily habits remain firmly rooted. A new generation is inheriting this environment, with over 30% of Nauruan children now classified as obese, a rate nearly double that of youth in the United States. For nearly a century, Nauru's phosphate fertilized farmlands across Australia, New Zealand, and the United Kingdom, boosting agricultural yields on the other side of the globe. Today, that very extraction has left the island unable to grow its own food. The jagged limestone pinnacles covering 80% of the interior stand as physical proof of a system that took wealth without offering restoration. This structural ruin, rather than personal choice, dictates the daily diet of every Nauruan, healing this barren soil and reclaiming food. Sovereignty remain the unfinished struggles of an island fighting to feed itself. Nauru's struggle is not a story of personal failure, but a mirror for our global food system. When a nation loses its connection to the land, survival becomes dependent on the very forces that depleted it. It is a warning we cannot afford to ignore. Share your thoughts below.